Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Mr. Robert Campbell, Rob Campbell, obviously, as everybody calls you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good to see you on this Saturday evening for me.
Yes. Thank you very much for doing something like this on the weekend.
Pleasure.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention your room looks a lot more darker than I recall seeing it last time. I'm assuming because it's usually natural light and
Yeah, we're and I have this weird green glow, even though I have no green light. So it's some weird Marvel like alien
I do
layer.
notice that. But I mean,
Yeah,
look, you know what? When you've got a backdrop of guitars and music memorabilia, it all looks like it's by design anyway. So,
yeah. Great, great, perfect. We'll go with that.
okay, a proper introduction to those who don't know you. Rob Campbell, who's the chief strategy officer for Calenza BBDO. You are based in Auckland, New Zealand. You're originally from the UK, but you've traveled around throughout your career in a lot of places. We're going to cover that. But your latest and well, it's been quite a while now that you've been based out of New Zealand for quite
Yeah,
quite some time with Colenso.
yeah. 5 years, which is extraordinary, and for them, terrifying probably. But yeah, it's been good.
Well, you know what? That is something I do want to cover because I think uh, uh, I feel there's an interesting story there to be told. Whether it's whether we're easily seeing it as we're talking about it right now, but we'll get to it.
Okay.
So look, a few more minutes. I just wanted to say, look, thank you for doing this. At the end of the day, the reason why something like Seven Ideas exists is because I felt there was a limitation to hearing sometimes from my peers, and especially in the last few years where I think we all need to hear it a lot more. Um, I've We've met in person before a long, long time ago in Singapore, probably during one of your travel runs. I think you were based in Shanghai at the time. So, but I have never actually heard you speak, and very much like yourself, I realize there's a lot of people in our industry, certainly people even one step removed from our industry, that sometimes we'd like to be able to speak to and get to understand and hear from them. But not all of us have a ticket to Cannes, or maybe as simple as not being invited to a cleanser Christmas party. So at the end of the day, I thought, hey, I can kill two birds with one stone. I get to hear from great people like yourself, and I get to do it in terms like this. So thank you very much. Love it.
I don't know if you'll get an invite to the Calenzo Christmas party, but I'll see what I can do.
I wasn't begging for one. I was just saying.
Fishing.
Okay. So look. At the end of the day, the point is sharing ideas with one another. Right. That's what it's all about. We're going to cover quite a lot of things, and perhaps, I mean, I've alluded to the fact that you've got a lot of guitars around there. Maybe if we have the time to cover your former life as a session guitarist when we get to it.
1,000 years
Um,
ago. Yeah.
yeah, and let's see. I'm hoping we have room to get a couple of those in there. Okay. There's only been one caveat. I believe we've talked a little bit about this before you decided to do this. It was, let's not talk about advertising. And
Mhm.
I know you meant it in the sense that, look, everyone always wants to talk about what they do, and maybe that's not as interesting. There's a lot more that we can discuss, and I agree with you. I think that is important. So with that in mind, let's try to talk about a topic that is probably still quite fresh, maybe a couple of weeks old now, and that is the changing of the guards at Apple. Right?
Mhm.
Why not? Let's start with the. We're still in the branding business. Let's start with one of the. I guess it is still the biggest brand in the world. Maybe not by money value because of Nvidia, and we'll get to that stuff later on as well. But let's talk about Apple. Apple's been a great test example. They're changing the CEO from Tim Apple to John
And
Turnus.
Cook.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I did that. No,
that'd be amazing if
that
it was Tim
wasn't
Apple.
fucking hell. I didn't even do that on purpose. Yeah. Okay. My notes say Tim Apple.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So from Tim Cook to Joan Turners, and it got me thinking. Right. So I was reading this news and I was like, wow. Okay. So this is another big leap for them. I guess my question and a good place to start to get your opinion to get the ball rolling is, what do you think of this particular change, but also the what we have seen from what Steve Jobs brought to that brand, and then where Tim Cook has taken it, and let's build on from there.
I mean, I have, apart from a bunch of friends who work there, I mean, I'd just be another objective voice. What I do find interesting, though, is obviously Steve Jobs was about innovation, his heart. And I think what Tim Cook has been about is probably maximization, um, his ability to really leverage the power of the business and its products to, I mean, it's a terrible phrase. A friend of mine, George, once said maspiration, but it's, just this scale and its power.
Mm.
And I think what's interesting with the change is that maybe we're going to get back to um, from innovation to maximization to maybe expression again. From um, what I understand, the new CEO was, maybe I'm wrong on this, but was quite instrumental about the iPhone Air, which is probably the first project in a long time that was really getting back into a design sensibility. Because I think they've lost a lot. I have a shitload of Apple products, like pathetic. I did a presentation for them a couple of years ago. I think I had like something like 84 different Apple products. Not that I've had, but I have. Like, I've got fucking laptops galore. It's ridiculous. Um, but I don't know if the same level of care was into that. And while I don't have an iPhone Air, what I really appreciated about it was that it did have a design distinctiveness again. I think that's been lacking, and I think this might be a new chapter for Apple, um, which personally I think is quite important to build on, because otherwise it was just about iteration, and getting into expression and design again would be a reinforcement I personally believe they need.
Well, look, how about this? Here's an observation. Steve Jobs was the visionary leader of Apple. That's how it started as the brand. And then Tim Cook, I like the word maximization, right? He was the business guy. He was the one that built it into the powerhouse brand that it has become over the last 15 years. And now as I've read it, that John Turnus is a hardware guy. To put
Mm.
it simply, he's a hardware guy. Wozniak was a hardware guy. Yet in that relationship between a Woz and a Steve Jobs, the visionary was the pilot in some ways, right? And I wonder now, and I don't know if there is a correlation there, but I wonder if the fact that we might now have a hardware guy as a pilot where we hadn't at the beginning. I wonder what that says about a brand and its maturity and where it might be going.
Well, I mean, I think, yes, he might be a hardware guy, but I think that's probably giving him a bit of a disservice. He's going to run one of the biggest companies in history. So he's steeped in the culture of that company. And again, I could be wrong, but I just found the iPhone Air really fascinating to me because it was a distinctive change. Yes, there was similarities and stuff, but it was a real, you held it and you went, wow, that's great. And it's been a long time since I had a product from Apple that's given me that same sense. So I think he might be a product guy, but he's a product guy with discernment, design, and a desire to make sure their products leave a lasting impression in every aspect of it. So look, we'll see. But I do think it is interesting that they've done that. Um, but I also think arguably that's the most innovative thing that they've truly done for a while, taking that leap. Um, Van Gogh's any future job at Apple probably, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the people I've spoken to who are friends of mine there, they thought Tim Cook was great. Tim Cook's very, very smart. But I think that there's a real sense of it's an it will give them momentum and acceleration again in terms of like running towards something rather than just trying to maximize something.
Yeah. Let's see. Time will tell. Again, so that was the reason I found it fascinating, and I've always found it fascinating, and in a way, deliberately so brought up at the top of the call, is because look, you probably have your own opinion on this. Maybe romantically speaking, I always thought that advertising sort of mirrors or looks up to or is inspired by the way, I mean, that is the representation of the ultimate brand. And certainly uh, for the longest time in our industry, in the advertising industry, brands are, and the value of the brands was a big thing. And I always thought that there was an era of advertising that was visionary led, and then we went to an era which was, let's make sure we're maximizing what we have here as a product or a product that we're selling to our clients. And then maybe we have gone past that middle era, the mirrored era with Apple, and onto something else that we also don't know, much like we don't know about what's happening next with Apple. What do you think about that? Do you think that's fair, or is that just me being a bit too romantic about the similarities between, and maybe it's not even advertising, maybe it's just an Apple or the ultimate representation of a brand with any other industry, and how they've tried to emulate how a company or an idea or a concept, business concept should grow.
Um, I mean, I've always gravitated to probably founder-led organizations. I've done my best work with them. I enjoy them because, and it's not purpose, none of that bullshit. It's fight and a desire to make people believe. Like there's a grit to it that I think is really wonderful. When I lived in well, different parts of Asia, there were two things that really like deeply entrenched in me. The first is the fact that there's this belief that the first generation makes it, the second um, maximizes it, and then the third loses it. Um, I'm not saying Apple in that respect, but I think maybe the advertising industry has done that because I think we're in this. I think our third wave was about the selling process. It might have had innovation and people who had a vision at the beginning. It might have then gone into the maximize phase with media, but now I think it's just the process age. And whether that's working is, well, there's two trains of thought on that. I certainly don't think it's working as it was. That's why I'm excited about the future, to be honest, with certain people. Um, but the other thing that I got told in Asia was by when I was in India. I didn't live in India, but spent quite a bit of time there. And someone talked about the philosophy of the farmer. And it's like you plant your seeds and you nurture your seeds. You take care of them, you look after them over time. And then when they are ready, when you will go and crop them. And it's a sustainability, but a caring element to it. And they said, but nowadays, the way that predominantly Western business, but probably all business operates, is the farmer plants the seeds and crops them the next day. So they never have a chance to see where they could go or what they could grow to. Um, and I think with certain organizations, obviously commercial viability is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with making money. I mean, God, I love it. But it's how you do it and what you do with it. I think the organizations I tend to gravitate to are the ones that play a longer game versus those who just want to exploit the short term. And I think our industry um, has sold the value of creativity. So they're in the modern farmer era where people I've always enjoyed more. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy what I do with other things, but where I've enjoyed it more is where we're building a body of work. And by that I mean not just in what my contribution is, but in terms of what the brand or the business could be. Something that evolves rather than just replicates over and over again, based on data that just fine tunes things. I mean, for me, strategy is about changing something, not just repeating something. And I think too often it's just become a world of icks that aren't even with consideration. They're just done. So I don't know. I don't know if that even answers your question, if I can even remember the question. But I do think that, yeah, there's definitely stages of stuff. But I don't know if that always means it's getting better unless you make it better. It doesn't. I once, sorry, I'm dragging on, but I once spoke on stage with, followed the CEO of a very large advertising agency, global advertising agency. And I just thought they talked utter shit, absolute shit. Like it was just mad. So then I came on stage and I just said, the thing that this gentleman before me fails to understand is like the future isn't it doesn't just come. Like you got to shape it, you got to guide it, you got to push it. And there was this attitude of it's almost like it just comes. You just can tweak it. And it's like, come on, mate. Like, what do you want it to be versus what you think it'll just naturally be? And I like people that want to shape stuff, change stuff, and build stuff versus just optimize it. That's always been my thing.
Look, you've stumbled into a conversation I wanted to have with you anyway, and I think,
Story of
and
my
I
life.
suppose
Yeah.
this is, well, you know what? In fact, I think we will talk about that, and I think that's going to be about the about travel and the importance of it. And you've done it, I've done it, and we'll talk about that too. But I think to stick to this, um, this is actually a question about more about Rob Campbell rather than advice for us in some ways. And I think that's important. That's part of this conversation, part of the conversation we need to be having. And it's about the way you felt, and I think we all have that. In this case, you're on stage with this other person, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you mentioned this idea of wealth. So not wealth, the generation, how different generations deal with that knowledge and what's been given to them, how they grow with it. My question about Rob Campbell, and I think it is relatable here, is the way you were able to do that. That's a bone in a body. There's something genetic about that. And I think, I feel the most creative people, and when I say creative people, I don't mean people who are in a creative department. The most creative people in the world are the most free people in the world in some ways. You look at musicians, you're familiar with the music analogy. A Mick Jagger or a Paul McCartney aren't just there because they know how to play an instrument or sing very
Mm.
well or have been lucky. There is an invisible thing there that you can't teach it. Do you think that's, and I suppose I'm laying that on you in some ways to say you have that gene. Do you think that's an important gene to have in order to succeed beyond the textbook in this business?
Well, that's very kind of you to say I have that gene. I don't know if I have that gene because I do think luck is a big fucking part of it. I think there'd be nothing more arrogant than just going, "Oh yeah, my natural talent got me there," because that's bullshit. There's way smarter people than me. Um, do you think that there is a stubbornness, hunger, curiosity, and ambition? And I mean, I am driven by paranoia, insecurity, vulnerability. That's probably helped me far more than anything else. Um, but just really interested in in people, creativity, new shit, um, but people who do it rather than just talk about it. And I've been really, I'm not joking, I've been really lucky. I've also worked hard. I'm not saying I don't work hard, um, but I do think, yeah, look, there are some people who just have an ability that is just amazing. I worked with a guy called Kirill Dixon at Wyden. He's a fucking phenomenal. You can't meet him and not go, he's got something. Like, and he's not just he's smart and he's a big bastard, strong and tall, and he's just got something the way he thinks, without doubt. But he wanted it. That's my whole thing. Is like the future doesn't just happen by itself. You've got to want it, and it's hard, man. It's hard. And I think um, what really worries me is this outsourcing of formats and processes that are about denying your own perspective or curiosity. And it's just follow this. This is the only way that works. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying you'll get the same answer. And it's like, and I find it really ironic that everyone wants to have something new, but they demand that you follow the same format of everyone else. And I'm just a stubborn old fuck. Always have been. I've got all the written warnings to tell you that. But it's always with a desire to try and help someone win better. Not just win better. Has it always worked? No. But everyone's got thoughts and they should be able to do it and be open to enough that it might not always work or that there's others that can guide them. And that there's formats in there that are great foundational baselines. I have a real problem when I hear someone like Mark Ritson, who's very smart and very good at what he does, but basically suggests that his way is the only way of doing it, which is just ridiculous because it's not true. But it is true if you want to um, minimize any chance of risk, which has the byproduct of minimizing any chance of extraordinary outcome. Which is why, and again, I say this with huge respect for him, he's more an insurance salesman than he is a business liberator. And there's lots of that. And lots of companies want that. We need stability. If I'm having an operation, I do not want me doing the operation. I want someone who is, done stable and stuff. But in business and with the way that society is always changing, the needs, demands, the influences, if you just have a rigid way of doing something, then you are impacting your potential. That doesn't mean you can do anything and get away with it, but it does mean you have to be open to it. I'm literally writing about it at the moment. The need to accept that part of creativity is to accept it's a very serious thing, but you shouldn't always take yourself too seriously. Not because it's superficial, but when you take things too seriously, you literally closing yourself off to the possibilities, implications, information, data that could shape a new opportunity. And that's why I work really well with people who value that. And I am the worst nightmare anyone who doesn't. And I've learned that the hard way and so have some other people.
Sometimes I wonder if the people that decided that advertising was a viable business model decided to take a subset of the human population that are famously anarchic, can be creative people, people who are free in the way they are coming up with solutions and go, yep, we'll use that as a pivot point to sell something as a business model. And I wonder if they ever thought, and then 50 years down the line, we'll put them in their place so that we can stick to a certain way of doing things. I wonder if that's, I mean, it's never been something I've had to think about until maybe even in the last 10 years, but it does feel strange that everything you've just been saying makes sense. And you're not Einstein, and you've just been you've seen how this works and how it works most efficiently. Certainly, when you're looking at it from a strategy lens as well, you get to analyze things in perhaps a different way. Okay, fine, we'll give you that, but I don't think it's rocket science in order to see that. And it does surprise me that sometimes we whether we have forgotten it or whether powers that be have decided we will deal with that later on. You know?
Yeah, I mean, look, my job is to help my clients be more successful than they thought they were going to be. That that's always been my job. Um, but often we are now in a situation where it's about, well, it's not about being the most successful you can be, being the most comfortable you can be. And I have another life where I work with, well, let's put it this way. I work with some of the most innovative, imaginative, commercially successful people on the planet. It just happen to be in music and fashion, two industries that are often ridiculed. And they totally appreciate the commercial value of creative. Um, they just stay open to stuff. They understand that you build on it rather than guarantee success every time with it. Um, and I just feel that sometimes the industry that's given me a life I could never have imagined and I love very much in many ways. Um, I think we have been so desperate for the applause of business that we have let go of the thing that actually enabled that. Whereas with the other people I work with, they are the creativity, so they value it, and I find that really it's infectious. It's infectious to hear the conversations, the questions they, and yeah, I really find that thrilling, and I wish our industry embraced it more. There's some brilliant people out there. I'm not. This isn't about looking to the past with rose-tinted lenses. I mean, God, very recently I looked at a bunch of ads from the 80s, 70s, and 80s. God, so much shit. But I do think that there was a greater openness to trying stuff and maybe a greater understanding of people versus just how people respond to marketing. And that's what I find with the other life I have fascinating, that they have a point of view versus they're just chasing popularity. I think our industry often is just about chasing popularity without any grit or point of view that's going to be a beacon. Well, let me say a bit. I think too often we try to be an attraction, desperately chasing it, versus a beacon that would pull people in. And I think the other side of my life, they care very much about what's going on, but they want to be a beacon, have a point of view in it that pulls people in rather than chases them down. I think that's where the difference has happened.
Yeah, I think advertising for the longest time has desperately uh, believed in if I don't remove the old shell, I'm going to die. You know, the lobster who can keep growing forever just needs to keep doing that, and we've almost taken it to, well, we just have to do it now. It's time. It's time to get rid of the old shell. Um,
And we should get rid of the old shell,
w-
but but not get rid of the soul of it. Like if you don't keep innovating, what's the point? But my problem is somewhere along the line, and I think part of it is because our industry is increasingly run by business people rather than people who are in the business of advertising and understand what advertising is. The people who understand that the process of creativity is not always this incredible efficient thing, but it gets to the magic. And because they don't understand it, they just try and kill it. Um, the we should totally get rid of our shell in that respect, but it should be always in the quest to allow creativity to thrive. And I think sometimes it's we say it's that, but it's not. It's to allow logic to.
yeah, look, I didn't mean to say we should never do it. I'm saying when you know that, I think in a way I was talking about it from the business point of view, where when the business analyst knows that as soon as you shed your old shell, you get to grow bigger. They've taken it to heart and go, let's do it a little bit earlier than we need to do it. I think that's the point I was getting at. Yes, of course,
Mm.
in order to grow, you have to outgrow your old threads, it makes sense. But at the speed at which you're doing it, some things are practical, and some things are just being overly. And I don't want to get into this thing about, because then it becomes about a industry conversation where, like, against it, and that's not where we're going with this. Let's change the track a little bit here. You mentioned this. You had a lovely response to how, when I was talking about the way we sometimes think that we're people decided to take a certain subset of people and put them, that thing, right? And then you were saying, but yeah, but I have this other life and I'm able to do this, and it's, you may laugh or you find it ironic, but they actually fucking love this, the stuff that you and I, or what you are talking about, as maybe dull now in your opinion. Which got me to thinking again, back to the Rob Campbell conversation, and I don't know if this is a conversation of access or action. And this is where I was mentioning earlier. Let's talk about the travel. Let's let's even circle back to the whole gene thing. There is something to be said about a person who is able to move around. I know there's, and admittedly, this was from a conversation I've had with you on a separate occasion. Um, People from London moving to Asia, there was a derogatory term made for that for a lot of English people. And these things have existed, but you saw it in a different way. And it wasn't just that step one to step two, you've done three, four, five, or however many steps you've done. And I think
Lots.
that's, yeah. And I think, and besides the career benefits that can come from that, I am more regional, I'm more global, I am more international. I This has probably been the snowball effect towards the music stuff or the fashion stuff, whatever it might be. How important is that for everybody? Is it number one? I do think it's important anyway, but do you think it's a matter of access, or is it just an actionable thing? No, you know what, it's a Rob thing. Rob decided to do that, and that's why I've been able to do it. Yes, luck is always going to be part of this, let's not forget it, but is it action or is it access?
Um, I think it's being an only child. So I got bored really quickly. Um, Look, I grew up in Nottingham. I loved it. I had an amazing family. They were so supportive. There was a time where I never wanted, I thought Nottingham was the greatest place on the planet, and it's pretty awesome. It'll be even better if Forest stay in the Premiership and maybe win Europa, but we'll see. Um, but my mum was Italian, so it was always a feeling of something bigger. Um, and then I uh, I fell in love with an Australian woman, um, and so I moved to Australia to be near her. That was a disaster. But do you know what? It's quite funny. About 10 years ago, I wrote to her to just say that basically, apart from one friend, everything in my life today is because it started because I went to Australia for her. Even though that was an absolute unmitigated, like Netflix quality drama in waiting, um, everything in my life, bar one friend, is because of her. And I wrote to thank her, which surprised me probably as much as it surprised her. But then for me, once I've done it, I loved it. I mean, there's a bit where you not reinvent yourself, you grow from it. I mean, for me, yes, you leave things behind, but for me, it's always been about what I gain. And it's never been with some master career plan. Um, I've gravitated people who do interesting stuff and I find interesting, but I want people who are doing it at the best level, not just churning stuff out. That's why LinkedIn drives me nuts. It's full of fucking pedestal peddlers who a lot talk a great game, but you go, well, what is it? And that sounds massively snobbish and derogatory.
No, no,
And
you're
I
you're being
appreciate that.
fair. You're being kind, but go on.
Well, but it's just that there's a big difference being, I don't know, the third prince of Belgium and being the emperor of Asia. It's like I want to learn from people who are doing stuff and interesting stuff, and I've always been open. I've got an amazing wife, a son who's had to follow along, a then cat that was willing to travel wherever we went. And I've always done that. The fact that I've just spent my 5th anniversary at Colenso, I really like New Zealand. I don't necessarily love New Zealand, and that sounds bad. I really, really like it. I'm a city chaos person. The Shanghai was always my favourite. And it won't be our last place. The fact of being here 5 years is both because of Colenso, my family loving here, New Zealand being so gracious, and I'm so grateful to that for that. But also Colenso allowing me to have another life while I'm working there. It keeps me engaged and busy. But my only child stuff is like, what's next? And the problem is at my age, I'm 50. How old am I now? 55? I'm going to turn 56 this year. Jesus, when I forget my own age, it's really setting in. Um, I'm at a point where I realize that I don't have an endless capacity to just go down every route I want to do, which I used to think. And I just throw myself at everything. So I need to be more discerning on what I'm going to be stupid and reckless about. But yeah, I love that. And I think that's that hunger, ambition, curiosity, paranoia that I talked about earlier has fueled success, inspiration, anticipation. And I I could have made choices that, from a career perspective, and probably from an economic perspective, have a fundamentally greater impact on my life in that respect. Um, and I chose chose not to do it. Well, that's not true. I did do it. I did it, and I realized I was not cut out for that. I was just not cut out for that. Because for me, it was, in that particular case, it was about valuing the financial return more than the creative satisfaction. And also, look, I'm a white male. The fact that I have a career in this industry
Yes,
is
you
more
are,
than
sir.
many. I do very well in my life, and I've done very well, way more than I ever expected. But I suppose I'm just saying that I could have done even more if I wanted. The thing that's always driven me more isn't or name, it's the ability or the access or the opportunity to do stuff that I never thought would be possible, that I just find really exciting and exhilarating. Like, my other life was all happy accidents, and somehow I'm still doing it. Colenso was a happy accident. Wine was a happy accident. Like, lots of them are. I meet people, or I follow them, or I believe them. They've gone, yeah. But for me, I've had to earn it rather than creep my way into it. And earning it for me was doing shit that would make people be interested. Um, and that's always been my desire. It's why don't I don't see the age. I'm very immature as well, but I don't see people's age. I just see what they do. So I'm I'm just as thrilled by people who are really young doing stuff than people who are, oh, like, I just want people to have done it. And even if they've failed gloriously, if they've been chasing something that I find intriguing, oh my God. And I'm fortunate that I've got to work with a lot, got a few that I can call friends, which, like, is mind blowing. Um, but yeah, it is absolutely infectious for me. And I run after it because I'm an only child who just finds those people. I learn so much. I just learn so much. And it then mixes up. Like, living in China, I had to learn everything I knew was kind of wrong. And I kind of fucking loved it. And the impact it's had on the rest of my life has been incredible. So yeah, I on my resume it says Rob loves um, culture, creativity, and chaos. I don't know if it's in the right order, but they're pretty accurate.
All this talk about Colenso got me to thinking about. I started my career in Auckland, and they were with network agencies before I moved out to Asia. you mentioned a little bit earlier on about you've always loved founder-led agencies. I think you mentioned that. And one of the realizations I had, and because my experience has only ever been New Zealand and in Southeast Asia, it hasn't gone beyond that. Many countries, but still within those two regions. The one thing I was really surprised at no at finding out when I moved to Asia was, oh, not all network agencies think the same. They have the same 3 letters or 4 letters, but they don't all operate in the same way. Uh, to say that, which is to say that I think in New Zealand, certainly 20 plus years ago when I would have started the, um, this is long before your time, obviously. We used to know, and if I can recall, Saatchi's was kind of known for the big epic shit, right? DDB was really good at comedy, and Colenso had the most, damn, that's a clever idea. Like everybody had their thing. And I think maybe perhaps because we were insulated in some way, we associated this brand to this and this brand to that. And when you left the nest, in this case, Auckland for me, I was like, oh, not all BBDOs do it the same way. Not all publicist agencies do it the same way. Um, do you think that's because in this case, because through your experiences and travels and the unconscious reason you found yourself at this home for the last 5 years is because you found that this really fit in with, oh, you know what, these guys kind of know because they are true to what they're about. They're not like that. I think you said the Italian guy on stage was talking shit. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he wasn't Italian, but yeah,
Sorry.
but yes, he was but he was talking shit. Put it this way, I mean, I have a lot of respect for BBDO, and I think the bosses in New York are fucking great, Nancy and Chris. But I wouldn't work at another BBDO office. But I've only worked at Colenso, and I think like I think half our clients now are global clients that we've earned rather than any network thing. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, Colenso's old. I mean, somebody asked me recently, "Oh, what do you think makes Colenso Colenso?" Because he's been doing it for 50 years. Weird shit, really so. And I just said, and there's something in the water. I said that's it. And they said, oh, but what's your process? I said, I think we're like a red setter puppy. It's like, and my partners in crime, Ange and Sai, we're very open with each other, and we'll call each other out, not because we want the best for each other, but mainly the agency. We do feel that we have a responsibility to that play. But I think the beauty of it is that Colenso has been allowed to continue being intelligently stupid. And I think a lot of other places who are part of networks, they're almost too connected to the network. Like the stuff, and because we're successful at doing that stuff, they've kind of let us do that. But also the responsibility is that we continue doing that. I mean, look, I've not worked at many network agencies, but when I have, it's been because of an individual. Like when I was at WPP, it's Chris Jakes. Chris Jakes is one of the greatest leaders I've ever worked for. And I hold that guy in the highest esteem possible. I've had a few people in my life change my life. He was definitely one of them for me. And in every way, in the way he acts, his love and understanding of creativity, he is single-handedly the best presenter I've ever seen in my life. Like there's in the TV show Mad Men, there's a famous scene of the projector where they're selling the projector.
The Kodak.
The carousel, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think it was for the Kodak client, if I recall.
yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who was a colleague of mine there, Frederick Sandblad, when we watched that, we both went, "That's fucking Chris J." Because
What the
the
Don
first
Draper
yeah,
bit that he was okay.
even
Got
though
you.
Chris was a business person rather than a creative person, the first presentation I ever did with him, I'd moved to Hong Kong for him. Well, I'd been in Singapore, then he changed agencies. I followed him because he meant that much to me. Still does. And it's a huge presentation. and I watched. Well, there were two things that happened. The first one is I walked in, and he was burning lemon aromatherapy kit. And I walked in, and in my head, I went, "What the fuck is this shit?" Like I was like going, "What's this namby-pamby shit?" Like my head was like going, "He's my boss." Like week two, so I kept it in my head. But I was going, "Okay, okay," just thinking, because I didn't see that side of him. And clients walk in, and they went, "Is that lemon?" And then he turned. He goes, "Yes, it is. You've just had lunch. I want to make sure that you're awake. We spent a lot of time doing this, and I want to make sure you receive it as it's intended." And I was like, "Holy fuck, that's incredible." He was immediately, he's acknowledging the situation. He's absolutely valuing our work, and he wants them to value it. And I watched him in the presentation. This is no word of a lie. I had to play so far. It's like he was so amazing. I put my hands together under the table so I didn't applaud. I was absolutely entranced by his charisma, his intellect, his creativity, his ability to make an argument. And so when I saw that carousel for Kodak, both Fanny and I were going, "That's fucking Chris Jakes." And, I am the Timu version of Chris Jakes. I mean, I think I'm pretty good in presentation, but I'm the Timu. No offense to Timu. But yeah, I've learned from that. So is that access? Yeah, that's access. But I, I, I mean, that's what moving's done for me.
See,
It's
but
same with, yeah, sorry.
no, this is the thing. We've talked enough times now, and we flip flop. Is it access? Is it luck? Is it actions? And I don't know. Is it all three? Again, between any creative field, I don't know if there's one solution, which is why I resort to using the word fucking gene. I don't know what it is, but what I do
But
know
I
is
do,
some people don't have it. I don't know what it is that you need to do it, but I know some bloody people do not have it.
but I think it's luck, it's curiosity, it's openness to see what's fucking great rather than what you're just told is easy. And I think it's when you like, I stay in touch with people. Like, like if I will, maybe not all the time, but like I'm hungry because I value them. I don't even want anything out of it. I just want, because I'm really interested in those people, and at all levels. There are people who are very, like, there's someone in London who's going through a hard time, but I think she's very smart, and I think she's really smart, and I don't think that she realizes how smart she is, and she's going through a bunch of stuff. I think she's amazing in the way she looks at it. I stay in touch because I want to. You know what? I've been fortunate in my life that I've had some people believe in me when others wouldn't. And about, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago now, I wrote to all of them, say thank you. It was really weird because they thought I was dying. There was no response for ages. Um, but Chris Jakes is like one of those. A guy called Simon Pestridge is one of those. There's a bunch of people. And I want to feel that I can do that for other people because the life I have, the life I still want to have, is driven by ultimately having some people believe in me when others wouldn't. I work privately for one of the most important, successful, and influential people in fashion on earth, especially in luxury and street culture. Um, because I was in a meeting, and I have no problems talking truth to power because it always hopefully comes across as not trying to be smarmy or look how smart I am. It's because I'd like them to win better and I'd like to learn from their perspective. And he took me for dinner the next day, and he goes, "You," he said, "it's very rare to meet someone who speaks in a way that I look at the world and can translate how I feel into words that I wouldn't be able to articulate." And I go, "What?" and I've worked with them 9 years. Luck. But I know how to maximize it because I'll work like a motherfucker. I'm never going to phone it in because I want them to win better and I want to test myself. And I really value the opportunity. I don't take that for granted, but I'm going to work for it. That's my paranoia. I'm going to work for it. I'm happy to say when I think there's a different opinion, they really quite like it because it's done for the right reasons and they can tell that. But yeah, so when you talk about that gene, yeah, there's a work ethic. There's a bunch of stuff, but I do think luck is a really big part of it. Without that, you can be as ambitious, curious, and hungry as you want. Nothing's going to happen.
I wanted to say that perhaps the people who thought, I wonder why Rob is contacting me, was because they weren't in the place where you were in life, in terms of that freedom to know that I am good with the decisions I'm making. I know where this might, I might not know where this is going, and that's okay. There's the certain satisfaction that comes from that. And some people just call it wisdom, and it could just be as simple as that, but it's not necessarily connected to an age. And I think it's connected to, maybe again, a journey that you may have had through your career that has brought you to all these steps and to these points. That's what makes you do those things earlier. I think the older we get more of this from our friends, and we understand it. But some people, when they're not on the same wavelength as yourself, fuck, we are getting philosophical. It becomes that I'm not feeling what Rob, do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
we all
maybe. I
need to
mean,
get there sometimes.
yeah, I mean, lots of people have opinions, but experience gives you the right to have a better one. And and I love learning from new people. I mean, there was someone I was who reached out to me last year or something, and I wrote back, and they were so shocked I wrote back, and I was going, why? Like, if somebody's going to reach out to me, oh my god, that's amazing. And I had a great conversation with them, enjoyed it, and because I'm always interested in what others are interested in. It doesn't mean I always will agree, um, but that fuels me. Like just this week, I spoke to somebody who, frankly, I shouldn't have. Like, mind blows my mind that I got to talk to them, and in that conversation, they gave me a perspective that I've told everyone about. Like it's like, oh my god, um, I am absolutely a magpie strategist. Like, I steal from a lot of stuff. I'll always credit them though, but I'm really good at unexpected relevance of things. And but to fuel that, you have to be open to everything and everyone. And you find your own voice and opinion by being exposed to that. I mean, this week or tomorrow, actually, my blog is 20 years old. 20 years. Mental. But what's more mental is occasionally I just read some stuff about how my opinion has changed 180 on some subjects. And I love that. I love that. I love being stubborn enough to know what I really value, open enough to know that I can be wrong on stuff, or I can grow with stuff, or I can evolve with stuff. That comes from being open to stuff, whether you're young and wanting advice from some old person, or working with someone who's highly successful but very old and going, teaching me a whole new way of looking at something. And they've taught me way more than a lot of the people and the structures in the industry. Not because they're wrong, but as I said at the very beginning, because I want to create original ways of solving old problems rather than just optimizing it. If you want that, go and talk to a beige Volvo. It's like, um, but yeah, I'm interested in that stuff, and I'm fortunate. I work and still surrounded by people who do that, and because I've travelled a lot, I have a world of people I can rely on. Even though I tend to work more specifically with a few who I don't know. There's just a different like my friend Paula Bloodworth. God, she's fucking incredible, and she might think very differently, but our ability and how we work together. We haven't worked together formally in terms of when we were at Wide for a long time, but we work together all the time because I don't know, we just have a rhythm where we often come from very different perspectives, and it's not even a compromise element, though there's always going to be, but it's like a sharpness, our desire to help each other be sharper. Um, and I've had a few of those people in my life, which is very lucky. But yeah, when you're, my whole attitude is when you're open to anything, then everything is possible. Everything could happen. It might not, but it could. And I'll take that.
You mentioned, um, well, we were talking about the carousel, the Kodak thing,
Mm.
which reminded me of a very recent conversation I had with the guest before you, who, um, so generally I speak to people with your background, people from advertising, marketing, creative arts, people like that, graffiti artists, stuff like that, right? For the first time, I kind of broke the the trend a little bit, talked to someone from Microsoft. Um, because everybody always thinks, we have to talk about AI. You can't hide away from it. And for the longest time, I didn't do that, not because I didn't want to face it, but because I don't think we know enough. We may still not know enough of where things are going, and one day everyone's going to be obliterated, and the next thing there's a coup d'etat against how it's going. So we don't know. In any case, I was talking to him, and he was my last guest before you, and because he was a guy who's not from marketing or advertising, I had to explain to him what's been happening in our world, right? And you resort to using madmen analogies to layman people not from our world in some ways. So Don Draper came up quite a bit during our conversation. Um, but there's a specific question that he asked me because I gave him the layout of what's been happening before November 2022, ChatGPT, and everything since, and how things have been affecting, changing, shifting. I used an analogy which I do use with industry friends as well, but it comes in especially handy with someone who doesn't understand advertising. Uh, I use the analogy of 95%, 5%, and saying that, listen, 95% of advertising is fucking shit, right? You know it. You're not even in advertising, and you know it, right? You will ignore 95%. You may remember 5%. You may, as a non-advertising person, share something that you found funny, entertaining. That's 1% of that to someone else. But that's the reality, and I think that's true of any industry in some ways. So anyway, so I used that analogy, and we started talking about AI, on how it's affecting, or I suggested we can only really do great 5%. And it's an arbitrary number I'm throwing out there, but it's a small amount of really good work, memorable work. That what we do, we're not surgeons, but the thing that we do, the greatness of that is kind of, it's a limited amount, or we are able to for some reason do it. And uh, time and time again, that's been proven. We only ever remember it. That's what award journals are there to remind you of, that you are only of an elite crop of these things. We will park the award importance aside for now. Anyway, he asked me, but hang on a second, Z. Are you suggesting that greatness is capped at 5%? And he's a guy who works at Microsoft. He's head of AI sales for his clients. And he says to me, looking from outside in, he goes, wait a minute, but then aren't you telling me, who's that guy from Mad Men, Don Draper? Yeah. So are you telling me that the Don Drapers at all the ad agencies that are out there now, because now that they have AI, doesn't that free them up? Because AI can take care of so many of the things that would otherwise take their time, to concentrate on the 5%. Now, I gave him an answer, but nobody here wants to listen to mine. What would you have told him?
I said you're a very good salesman. That's what I would have said to him. I'm not doubting his sincerity in that, even though it's coming across that way. But again, when you live in a bubble, anything's good. I also take umbrage of memorability being the only definition of good, because I remember Mr. Bean and I fucking hate Mr. Bean, but I get your point. Um, the But it's not AI's. problem's not AI. The problem is the people behind AI. AI is amazing. Like I use it a lot. I find it fascinating. It's still in its infancy, but it's the people behind it, and it's the people who are not realizing the implications of it, and the people who are deliberately ignorant of the implications of it. Um, so yeah, my answer would have been your sales pitch is very good for certain organizations, but maybe not for everyone.
And I think you're right at what you said at the top, that he was being quite honest about it. This
Totally.
was
Yeah.
after a good 45 minutes of me boring him with how things work in our industry, and he goes, "But hang on a second. From where I'm sitting, that means you now can do more. You don't have to worry about 5 anymore, Z. You can get it to 6 and 7." He didn't quite understand that it's not as simple as that, and that's not the point. I just wanted to.
But
I thought it was important.
and yeah, and I totally get it. And I think part of that is because he lives in a bubble of his technology versus, and everyone does. I mean, uh, last year, Paula and I spoke at Cannes, and Paula works for Idris Elba, and as I said, I work for a number of different people, and I had to get permission if I was
Yep.
going to talk about them. And I spoke to their people, and I said, I'm going to do this talk, and is that okay?" And they went, "Why are you talking at Cannes?" I said, "Oh, because I've been asked," and they're going, "Oh, that's great." And then slowly they realised I wasn't talking about the film festival, and then there's an advertising festival. I went, "Yeah, yeah," and said, "How many people go?" I went, "Thousands, thousands." Like they were like, "Fuck," and I suddenly was like, "Wow, my whole industry just is a bubble of its own self-importance," and it was great. It was a good reminder. Um, and everyone has that, and that's why you have to be interested in what others are interested in, because otherwise you just think that you can sell AI, and it's just selling it gives you the chance to be more efficient, and you turn a blind eye to the fact that it's going to destroy entire industries. There'll be no income to actually buy anything, and then companies will ultimately eat themselves. Hence it's really fascinating that China's making it illegal to use AI to replace people. So it's but again, it's not AI's fault at all. And I think we're really quick to blame technology or blame industries. It's not. It's often it's the people running it or behind it, and they have a commercial requirement. I'm not destroying denying that, um, but there are implications. And what I find frustrating is when people raise those implications, they are immediately called Luddites or problems, and it's not. It's about being informed so you can make a decision knowing what you're doing versus being able to hide behind ignorance. But people, what, The Big Short, there's that quote which I love. It goes, what is it? Truth is like poetry, and everyone fucking hates poetry. And I think quite often that's the same attitude a lot of organizations have. They don't want truth. And that's why I'm really good with some people, I'm really bad with others, um, because they interpret it as me trying to, I don't know, limit them, judge them. And it's not. It's never been that. It's always I want them to win better. And that's on me maybe for not articulating it properly. But sometimes it's because organizations only manage up. And so, we'll see. I've managed to get a career out of it. And I'm grateful for that. I can still look in the mirror.
Um, I can I would forgive that guest of mine. I mean, who am I to forgive anyone anyway? But I can understand why someone who is living in the bubble, as you rightly pointed out, um, can think that a widget not like the whole technology, one widget of a technology now gives you more time. It's like a power up for Mario Brothers for in some ways, and I can see why someone in his position, their position, they might think that. I can understand why Altman might think that. I can understand why Zuckerberg, even before AI, when they came in from a digital media company and it's like, well, you don't need this, you can do A/B testing with us. That it's, they looked at it as this can solve that. I understand them doing it. I think and I don't know if concern is the right word, but I can forgive them for it, but I can't forgive our own fraternity for going along with it, though. There is a difference,
No.
One person.
But they want to be accepted by that organization, by that group of people.
But okay, simple. The simpleton in me says, yeah, but then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
100%, but they'll be gone with their millions by then.
As simple as that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I said, I have no problems with people making loads of money, none at all. But how you do it and what you do with it, and I'm not. I'm sure I'm being naive on a bunch of stuff, but decisions and actions matter, and quite often the only people that we are focusing on is the market versus the sustainability of a business. And like Apple, going back to Apple, they've made a shitload of failures. Let's be quite honest. And they've learned from them, but they're very definitive in what they do and they value. And I think that's what Steve Jobs was really good at. And his paint behind the fence analogy and all that. It's like, if you're not going to do it right first time, when are you going to have the time to do it, sort of thing. There's a stubbornness in that, but it's like, because I'm playing the longer game. That's why the thing I've always appreciated about China, and yes, you can talk about communism as part of that, even though it's pretty capitalist in many ways. They play the long game. They think the fact that they've done that AI decision. Now, you could argue that they're not going to be so rigid if that AI technology can be sold to other nations. But the fact that they've done it for their nation, they understand. The amount of times I had people from the West come here and just talk about how, oh, China needs to get its environmental policies better. And I was going, they are a bigger investor in green tech than any place on the planet. They've also been arguably the worst offender for less time than many of the other nations on the planet. But they are trying to sort it out. They absolutely want to sort it out because fundamentally they appreciate the economic value of the environment. However, we've got 1.4 billion people's engines to feed. So they are trying to manage that out. But do not think that they aren't conscious of it. They are not deliberately ignorant. And but I think there's a lot of places. I think a lot of capitalism is about being deliberately ignorant. And I want, yeah, you have to work hard, you have to do things, but I don't think I just think that there should be more openness in terms of knowledge versus cherry picking. And in my job, that's part of my job, is to help people understand that and then say, we're making a deliberate decision here versus being able to claim ignorance. But a lot of people feel it's going to alienate people. Like my job is about sacrifice. It's ultimately about sacrifice, but you better be informed of what you're doing and why, because otherwise you're either being blinkered blind or ultimately undermining yourself. And my job is to help people get bigger and better, not less and less. And I just think that there's a lot of systems and processes where the efficiency is about going as deep and narrow as possible. And you're going, guys, we're being blinkered. And I think our industry, in its quest to make money, chased what it thought everyone wanted and maybe has forgotten what we actually were really good at.
It didn't happen overnight, and it happened long before AI anyway. So it's not really about this.
Yeah, there's some great
another
people
reason
out there,
to not blame
so.
AI for everything. I'm trying to be polite with the words here. The culprit was always in the room. It had nothing to do with the technology when it came, in the last 2 minutes.
Well, there's a great Arsene Wenger quote where he talked about everyone. I mean, it's pretty sexist when you think about it, but he said everyone thinks they go home to the prettiest wife or something like that. And I think
everyone thinks they have the prettiest footballer's wife or something. Yeah.
And it's just like, because it's commercially valuable to be blinkered. And yeah, and that's why I have no problems talking truth to power, because I'm trying to help them be better versus bring them down. And I'm not the only one. Please don't think I'm saying, "Oh, I'm special." I'm not. There's loads of people who do. There's unbelievable talent in our industry still. Like, that's what upsets me the most. The fact that there is so much brilliant talent who are being, some get to shine, that's great, but a lot more are getting consumed. And with things like organizations wanting to maximize efficiency, they've got to conform because they've got families to feed. It's horrific. Um, but this industry is full of them, full of talent, um, but they're not necessarily being free to do it, because, and everyone is complicit here. Let me be very clear in this. Clients can say they want better work, but they outsource the responsibility to a procurement department who don't care about the work, don't understand the work. And so everyone's got their element to it, and that's because there's a lack of, my boss Ange. One of the things that she talks about at Colenso is truth over harmony, but we live in an industry of harmony. Smile while we fuck each other over versus tell the truth and get to a place of transparency is the greatest act of respect. Truly, truly believe it, because then you can sort things out. But when it's with agendas and stuff like that, that's where it all gets messy. And yeah, fake harmony.
I think everyone's complicit, and with all due respect, you and me, everyone. When it's
Hundred
everyone,
percent.
everyone, because it's I think there is something that we can get into from this. Then, um, you say there are great many talented people in the industry who are saying the right things and hoping for the right things and have the manifesto for how to make it right, or uh, recalibrate, let's say, if required, but nobody necessarily is asking, or I think maybe we're not doing enough of it, or the people who have that voice, that power, that lecture, and they can stand on and speak for it. But we don't want to get I don't want to get into that. I wanted to, let's pivot that to a another industry that I would argue is a creative industry, filmmaking, Hollywood, let's say.
I bloody hope that's a creative industry.
I'm not trying to connect one to the other. It's all I'm trying to say is, if you can say that there are talents, there are a lot of talents who are ready to defend and know how to take care of this. I'm saying in a parallel industry, there are also people who are doing that. The only difference being they just happen to be on the right side of the salary end to be making more of a difference. That was the point I was making. Um,
Mm.
and
Well, Disney got rid of all the artists from Marvel. Was it last week? This
something like
week?
that, yeah.
And I understand that business can get a lot of fat and inefficiencies. You've got to, turnovers, vanity, profit, sanity. But there's also a bit of, it's an endless greed of it. And sometimes it's like, well, what are we creating and adding and building and making for sustainability? But I totally hear you. It's like every industry is going through it. Look, the banking industry is suffering. All the people that we often go, it's their fault. They're suffering. Everyone, because we're eating ourselves. And look, I'm not anti-capitalism or any of that. I mean, I have issues as regards some of it, but my thing is, I see. Yeah, okay. Let me tell you something. Last year, I spoke to someone who I thought was pretty smart. They were interested in a job, and they probably were smarter than they thought they were, but they could be smarter than they imagined they could end up being. I really liked them.
Could you repeat that again? They
Yeah,
were
they probably thought they were smarter than they actually were at this point, but their potential was bigger than I think that they thought it could be.
okay. Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. And I liked them. I thought they were great. And and they had such an insecurity about what they could become because they had bought into the maybe what can I call it? The LinkedIn format cell that I had to learn all these things. And I was like, they had an incredible ability in photography. And I said, why are you not embracing it? And they'd said, I've spent years trying to deny it's important to me because no one values it. And I'm like, going, it was tragic. They had all these skills that could literally set them apart. They had a great, their eye was their voice, their
I'm
ability to,
I assume this person is a planner, was a planner when
yeah,
we were having this
strategist.
conversation.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
And even now it's still, I mean, I don't know what they're doing now, but that they just felt that they were inadequate in some way. And that the skills that really I felt stood them apart that actually were incredible and could be nurtured to something powerful. They weren't they weren't of any value because the system, the process that everyone's promoting, this conformity, they needed to learn skills that they probably weren't interested in anyway. And and that's where we're at. Talent's being denied because they think that they have to follow a system because the industry is promoting certain systems versus the output of what we're trying to create. And it's the same in every industry. I think this um, which goes back to your original point, is I am not trying to be a rebel. There's some things that I try to rebel, but it's like I just know the impact and power of what creativity can do. Creativity can, as I've said many times, achieve what logic can't. But it needs conditions, it needs the right people to nurture it, and it needs a certain element of openness. And that has been translated into being risky, ineffective, and inefficient. Meanwhile, many of the systems and processes being promoted are either for the benefit of an individual or about limiting what something could be. And I just find it quite, there is space for both, but it's like this the talent, there's just talent that I worry isn't going to get the chance to grow or find their own voice because they are already feeling that they are not good enough or they won't have a career unless they conform to everything else. And all I'm trying to do, all I've ever tried to do, because I've had people believe in me, is try and be a conduit for that because I also benefit. The more people I see creating stuff that by certain elements shouldn't necessarily have made sense, but they do. God, it makes me happy. The Burberry campaign makes me so happy. Like, here is a luxury brand that talked about fish and chip shops, and they did it in such a
Yeah.
brilliant way, different from the category, real truth, a real craft and art. It 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 elevated what often is seen as the uh, posing force of luxury in many ways. It was quintessentially British. Creativity did that. I tell you what, they didn't use a fucking Mark Ritson model. And again, that's not at Mark Ritson, but it's just like there's a, and it's just, oh my God, if we don't stay open to anything, how on earth do we expect to evolve and grow? And commercially, not even creatively. And every industry is going through this. And the great irony of AI is it's selling itself on productivity and profit. Um, but ultimately, at this moment, it's the great aggregator. It's literally selling the ability to be middle of the road as a success model. And I find that interesting because that's what companies are all, they're all looking for the fast track for a guarantee. And there's a lot of data to say that there's a lot of failure with all that formatting or this guaranteed success metric. You've got to have an element of objectivity about it, and we are being told we're not allowed to. And that's the only thing that I question. It's not that I'm saying it's wrong. I just want us to be able to go, but what if it's wrong? Just test it, challenge it, and be open to other ways. And I think our industry is at its best when it uses creativity to redefine the possibility rather than just replicate the past. Can I ask you
I
one question?
yes.
Do you think, because I get a lot of people reaching out to me, do you feel that, I mean, we're all busy, I get that, but do you feel that, it sounds like with what you've suggested that people feel they can't reach out to people? Is that what you mean? That they can only do it if they go to Cannes and see them? I mean, I get it, I get that, but like okay, I was just saying because we once had someone and Baz, and when he was interviewed, this is when we had Cynic, and I was asked to go and see him and ask who his references were. So I went in. There was a young kid. And I said, "Hi, I'm one of the founders here. Been told I should come and ask you for your references." And his references were Steve Jobs, Kofi Annan, Nelson Mandela, and, and Bill Clinton, I think. And I said to him, "Are these real?" And he was so disgusted that I'd asked it. He's like, "Why do people ask me that?" And I'm going, "Are you kidding? What do you mean? Why do people? What the fuck?" Um, and over like, I don't know, I can't remember. It's a long time. I can ring him and find out. But 7 or 8 years, he'd written to them all, going, "I'm a young kid. You're going to dictate my future. Can I meet you?" And he fucking met them over a period of time. And then the canny bastard asked for a reference from them all. And I've always, and your point about me when I asked that guy with the BMW 8 Series, like we, I appreciate that doesn't mean everyone's going to respond, but we can reach out to people. And maybe that's the thing that I've just gone, let's try and do it and see what will happen versus they'll never respond. And maybe there needs to be a bit more polite impatience. Not again, as I said, the LinkedIn thing where everyone's doing it because they want something out of it. I get a lot of that,
I
but
think that's
people
the
who are
problem.
just interested.
The problem is we've uh, the LinkedIn thing is a problem, to be honest. And
Mm.
I've deliberately tried to avoid saying that word. You've brought it up a few times, that L word. I just find, and I just think that when people reach out to others within our industry, and I can only speak for our industry, people think, "What do you want?" And I think, what the hell did we do to get to this point? To the specific point about you, it's not about that. It's not about people think that they can't reach out. It's all of the above of what you said. It's um, we're busy, blah blah blah. And no, I'm not suggesting that people think that a con uh, forum is the only way to talk to Rob, but it's there, so that I can take that off. I'll get to that when I get to that, and I'll get on with my life. But the reality is, it shouldn't be about that, because then it becomes about specifically the con thing. It becomes again, then it becomes about access.
Yeah, the bit that I think's, I mean, I mean, it's lovely for you to invite me because it's like I'm an old bugger as well. There's a lot of young people, so it's quite nice to be invited. But
I'm just getting to you before it's too late.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But the thing that I really appreciate is because I said to you I didn't want to talk about advertising. You've done a very good job of getting me to talk quite a lot about advertising. But there has been it's been quite meandering and all over, and I really like conversation like that. Like somebody once said to me, we don't often talk about, and it's often in interviews they go, "Oh, we're talking about this," because I want to know your character. I want to know how you feel. If I'm meeting you, you've got something already. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. But and I like that. My thing, not everyone on LinkedIn is bad, in all honesty. But what I do find interesting is I have a lot of people reach out to me and go, "What do you do with these other artists, for example? How did you get it?" And I go, "Well, I can't tell you necessarily what I do. One, because it's quite hard to explain, and two, I have an NDA. But two, it was luck. It was luck. And in those cases, it was genuine luck. And people don't like that answer because it means that they're like going, "Well, I can't get luck." But then some get quite bullshit. Whereas people who are just, who want to chat, I think I'll always try and be open to them. I'm busy, and sometimes I've put my family second on that, and I made a conscious decision going, that's fucked, sort yourself out. But but I think the biggest benefit for these conversations, and the reason why I don't like LinkedIn often or anything like that, is that they're so focused and efficient that life has got tech, man. My whole life, as I said, my mum, be interested in what others are interested in. That's all texture. Everything I've got, the magpies, everything is about being able to go on these things. And we'll have said some stuff. You've made me trigger stuff, and I'm going to think about it. And go, I wish I'd said it this way now, or I hadn't even thought about that. For me, that's that's the richness of how creativity is formed and all those things. But we're trying to get linear. I'm going to tell you what I want, and you're going to say yes or no. Done. It's like, whoa. Whereas, like this fashion guy I work for, he believes in relationships, not transactions. And if you're once he's made that call, you're in it. And that means that it might fail as long as it's failing for the right reasons. You're trying to do for the right thing. He'll stick with you, and everything's become so efficient, and that's why I love talking to people who are starting out or young or in the industry. But when they want to have a conversation versus just transaction, and they want to, like the Joel who I mentioned earlier, and Maya as well. There's loads of people like that. Um, what I love about them is they just wanted to get better for the desire of wanting to get better. It wasn't necessarily just for promotion and wealth. I mean, they deserve that. They just wanted to get better, and we want it, and I want to help on that. But then I got this guy contact me from the Middle East, and we just won a Grand Prix at Cannes. He goes, I really want to know how to win a Grand Prix. And I went, why? He goes, oh, I'm just interested to understand how it is. I said, are you asking for like if there's a secret code? Because if you are, I'm going to be your worst nightmare. And it was like, oh, no, I'm not asking that. I said, well, why are you asking that? He was absolutely wanting to find some magic code to do it. And it's like, you think that's it? Maybe there is. Maybe I'm just fucking stupid and we just lucked into it. But it's like this, on one level I get things are hard, so it's great that people want to be the processor. But sometimes you got to graft. That doesn't mean hustle. Hustle's very different. I don't like hustle, but graft. So yeah, those meandering conversation. I love that. And I love that people want to talk to me because I learn. They think they might learn from me. I mean, God, yeah, but I learn how they think, I learn how they see things. I love it. And that's why I've moved countries a lot. That's why I love China. China in particular. China and Japan, but China. I love that place. To the point where even people there go, why do you love it so much? Which I also find quite funny. But I do because it's different. It's always changing. Um, and if I went in there going, I just need to know what I need to be successful, well, one, that doesn't exist. Two, disrespectful can you get? And to your point, there's a lot of disrespectful approaches there for the people who want to get better for the sheer love of wanting to get better. Then the rewards will come, but the focus is they have a desire they just want to get better or learn or hear things or always have time for them because what they don't realize is to.
Thank you for continuing to do this and meander with me. So I really
Mate,
appreciate that.
thank you for seriously, it's like thank you for having me. I mean that. It's like yeah, it's lovely. I really appreciate it.
I hope we can do it soon without having anyone looking in. All right, man. Take care. Talk soon.
Take care, matey. Cheers. Cheers, mate. Bye.